How long have you been thinking about starting something of your own? I'm not talking about a passing thought, but a proper, I could actually do this moment. The kind that shows up while you're washing dishes or driving, taking a shower, or lying awake at midnight, and it just won't leave you alone. Has it been a month? A year? Longer than that? And here you are, still thinking, still not started. Maybe you've bought the domain name and let it sit there for 8 months. Or you've got a notes app full of ideas you've never told a single living soul about. Or maybe you're watching a friend launch the exact thing you've been quietly considering for years and felt happy for her and also a little sick to your stomach. Is it your age? Is it the tech? I hear this all the time in messages, comments, and conversations with women who go back to the same two lines every single time. I'm too old to figure this out, or I just can't wrap my head around the technology. Sometimes it's mentioned like a joke. Sometimes it's dead serious, said quietly, almost like a confession. That's not what's stopping you. Neither one of these things. They're the easy answers, the ones that let you off the hook without asking anything harder of yourself. In this episode, we're going to walk through what's actually stopping you and what to do about it. Hi, I'm Trish, and this is Just a Number, the podcast for women 40 and up who are ready to stop waiting and start building from everything they already know. Part business, part unlearning, part confidence reset. Because you're not starting over, you're evolving with intention. We're talking lived experience, career wisdom, passions, and hard-earned perspective, turned into content, courses, and offers that actually help people. We're not here to play by the rules. Let's build boldly, teach what we know, and make it count. Welcome to Just a Number. Let's deal with age fast, because you already know where I stand on this from the very first episode of this show. A study out of MIT Sloan and Northwestern's Kellogg School looked at who was actually behind the fastest growing new ideas in the country. The average age wasn't 25, it was 45. And the largest percentages of new businesses are started by women over 40. All the years you've spent developing experience and expertise so far, none of that was empty space. It's exactly the material that shows up in results like the findings in the study. So we're not going to spend this whole episode rehashing something you already know in your bones. Age isn't it. Tech, we haven't really gone near yet, so let's talk about it. Fear of technology at this stage of life is rarely really about technology. Most of the women I talk to can figure out a checkout page in 20 minutes once they sit down and actually try it. What they're truly afraid of is being watched while they figure it out. Clicking the wrong button in front of a screen recording. Asking a question maybe that feels like it should be obvious. Looking, even for a moment, like someone who doesn't already know how to do this. And it's not really about being unable to learn it either. Most of the women I work with pick up the actual mechanics fast, often faster than they expected to. What really slows things down in the moment, right before they hit publish or send or go live, when the learning stops being private and starts being watched. That pause has nothing to do with intelligence or capability. It's just what it feels like to do something new where other people can see the attempt, not just the finished result. You don't need to be a wizard with software. You need one offer, one way for someone to pay you, and one way to deliver what you promised. A simple page describing your offer, a button that takes a payment, and an email that sends your deliverable or maybe a calendar link if what you're delivering is your time. That's the whole engine. Everything else, funnels, automations, algorithms, is stuff you can add later if you ever want to, And plenty of women never do and still build something that changes their life. Women who've never built anything online in their life can set this up and publish it within a single afternoon. It's not polished, but it's live and it's able to take a payment. The tech gets simpler every single time you touch it, the same way any new skill feels impossible right up until the moment it doesn't. So, if it's not your age and it's not actually the technology either, what is it? What's actually stopping you? What's stopping you doesn't show up on a resume. It's not going to show up in a Google or YouTube search about age or technology either. It's smaller than that, and it's a lot more specific. You're afraid of being a beginner in public at this point in your life. Think about how strange that actually is when you say it out loud. You've been a beginner before, plenty of times. First day of a job you've never done. First time holding a baby who doesn't come with an instruction manual. First time running a meeting where you're the least experienced person in the room, had to fake your way through it until you weren't faking anymore. You survived every one of those. Maybe you were bad at all of them at first, but nobody revoked your membership card to adulthood because of it. But somewhere along the way, the rules changed. At 25, being a beginner is expected. It's basically the whole job description. Nobody looks at a 25-year-old fumbling through something new and thinks less of her for it. But at 45, 55, 65, there's this unspoken agreement that you're supposed to have arrived already, that you should know things by now. And the idea of being visibly new at something in front of people who've known you as capable for decades feels like it costs something that starting fresh when you were 25 never did. It feels like it risks the one thing you've spent your whole life building, the sense that you're someone who has their shit together. There's also something particular about doing this in public, out loud, on the internet, that's different from other times you've been a beginner. Nobody filmed you learning to change a diaper at 2 a.m. Nobody screenshotted your first terrible presentation and then kept it in a folder to compare against your 5th one. Most of the beginner stretches in your life happened somewhere private enough that only a few people ever saw the rough draft of you. This one doesn't offer that privacy, or at least it doesn't feel like it does, and that makes us anxious. It's not simply that you're afraid of being new. You're afraid of being new somewhere permanent and somewhere searchable, a lot more visible than anything you've had to be a beginner at before. That's what tech actually threatens. It's not the buttons, it's the exposure. The chance that your grown kids, your family, friends, your colleagues, or the woman from your book club will watch you be new at something, and you'll have to sit in that for a minute instead of actually being good at it. And it's not only tech. It shows up anywhere you'd have to let people watch you not yet be excellent. Posting the first version of something before it's polished, or telling one person what you're building and hearing crickets, pricing something for the first time and wondering if you got it wrong. Every one of those requires the same thing: being willing to be a beginner where people can see you. And it doesn't show up evenly across every task either. You might be completely at ease running a 5-person meeting off the cuff. But sit down to record a 30-second video of yourself explaining your offer, and suddenly your hands don't know what to do, and your voice doesn't sound like your own. That's not a contradiction. Meetings you've done thousands of times. This, whatever this new thing is, you've barely done it at all yet. And that gap is exactly where the discomfort lives. It has nothing to do with whether you're capable. It has everything to do with how many hours you've logged doing this particular new thing. And right now, you just haven't logged many yet. Same as everyone the first time they tried it too. So, Instead, a lot of us do the same thing. We keep practicing where nobody can see. We spend hours rewriting the same paragraph over and over. We re-record the same video until the lighting is perfect and the words come out smoothly. And somehow, it still doesn't feel ready to post. We tell ourselves we're being careful or thorough, and sometimes we are. And often what's actually happening is we're trying to skip the part where anyone watches us be new at this by getting good at it first, alone, in private, before a single other person ever has to see the rough draft. The trouble is, that's not actually possible. There's no version of this where you get to arrive already finished. The rough draft has to happen somewhere. And if it can't happen in private forever, at some point it has to happen where people can see it. None of that is really about competence. A woman who has decades of lived experience has already proven she can handle far harder things than a checkout page or a reel. This was never a competence problem. It's an exposure problem, dressed up as a competence problem, because that's just easier to say out loud. I watch this exact moment happen over and over with people I work with. Everything is ready, the offer makes sense, the plan is solid, and then when it's time to hit publish on the first real public findable piece of it, something freezes. Not because anything is actually wrong, because for the first time in a long time, they're about to be seen doing something they haven't already mastered. And that feeling is so unfamiliar at this stage of life that it gets misread as evidence that something's wrong, instead of just being what beginnings feel like. The version of you that other people already respect, the one who seems like she has it all figured out, was a beginner at every single thing she's good at in front of someone at some point. She didn't arrive knowing how to run a household, manage a team, hold a family together, whatever it may be. She fumbled through the early version of all of that in front of people closest to her, and it didn't disqualify her. It's actually the entire reason she has anything worth sharing and teaching now. The competence you're worried about not having yet isn't a precondition for starting. It's what starting eventually produces. The same way it did every other time in your life you can't quite remember agreeing to become a beginner, because you just were one, and then you weren't anymore. So when the fear shows up dressed as, I'm too old for this, or I can't figure out the tech, what's actually underneath it is something much more specific. You don't want to be watched while you're still figuring it out. And that is a completely valid and normal thing to feel. This is also why the usual advice like, just be more confident or just push through the fear, never actually works for very long. It's treating something completely normal and completely temporary like there's a personal flaw that needs fixing, when really there's nothing to fix. There's just a stretch that you need to move through. The same stretch everyone moves through, whether they talk about it out loud or not. And feeling that discomfort is also not a reason to stay exactly where you are for another year, another month, another day. So here's the reframe. You don't need to stop being afraid of being seen as a beginner before you start. You need to accept that being a beginner, visibly for a little while, is simply the price for building something new. And it's a price everyone who's ever built anything worth having has paid, including every single person you currently admire. I didn't wait until I felt like I already knew what I was doing. I started while I was still figuring it out, terrified, in front of people, and some of it was definitely messy. And none of that clumsiness turned out to matter nearly as much as I thought it would. What mattered was that I kept going long enough for the messy part to turn into the competent part, which it always eventually does, as long as you don't quit in the middle because of embarrassment. That in-between stretch, the part where you're visibly still learning, it doesn't last as long as the fear tells you it will. The first post is the hardest one. The 10th one, it's just a Tuesday. The first time you fumble through explaining your offer out loud, you'll remember it for a week. By the 20th time, you won't remember it at all. And neither will anyone who saw it, because they were busy worrying about their own beginning, not cataloging yours. The very fact that you're a beginner at this specific thing is proof of something good, not something concerning. It means you're finally doing the thing instead of only thinking about it. If you'd already mastered it, you wouldn't be building it right now. You would have built it years ago. Being new at this isn't a sign you waited too long. It's just what the actual beginning of anything looks like for absolutely everyone. No exceptions, including the women you may be comparing yourself to right now who look like they've never struggled with a single thing in their life. So the next time that feeling shows up, the one that whispers, you should already be better at this by now, try calling it what it actually is. It's not proof you're too old. It's not proof the tech is too hard for you. It's just the very normal, very temporary feeling of being new at something. And it goes away the exact same way it's always gone away for you before. You just keep going, maybe badly at first, then fine, then eventually great. The exposure feels a lot smaller when you're not the only one who sees it. Doing this stretch completely alone with nobody else aware of how new you are at any of it makes every small stumble feel like private evidence against you. Doing it with even one other person who's watched plenty of women go through the exact same middle and who can tell you plainly whether something's actually a problem or just what the beginning normally looks like changes the whole experience of it. Doesn't remove the discomfort. It just means you're not carrying it by yourself. So now you know what's actually stopping you. Not your age, not the tech. It's the very ordinary, very human discomfort of being new at something while people are watching, at a stage of life where maybe you didn't expect to be new at anything again. You're allowed to be a beginner again. You're allowed to be visibly and perfectly new at something, the same way you were allowed to be new at every single thing you've ever eventually gotten good at. It was never a one-time allowance you used up in your 20s. This isn't about needing more proof you're capable. You already have decades of that. It's about being willing to let people watch you build the next part of it in real time, instead of only showing up once it's finished and safe. That's what we help with at TLC Creative. We don't just help you build a digital offer. We walk alongside women through exactly this stretch, that clumsy, visible middle part, where it's still a little uncomfortable and you're learning it in front of people until it turns into something you're actually good at, using everything you already know instead of waiting until you know even more. I hope today's episode gave you a little bit of relief and maybe made being a beginner again feel a little less like something to hide. If you recognize yourself in anything I talked about today, I want to invite you to book a free call with us. It's just a conversation. I promise. No pressure and no pitch. You tell me where you are, and I'll help you see what's possible from there, beginner stage and all. You don't need the polished version to book it. The whole point is just us talking through it while it's still a little rough. The link is in the show notes, so go ahead and book your call. And if you haven't already, hit follow so you don't miss next week's episode. Until next week, remember, just a number.